Hello, hello. Old Dad here, and this is the big build. I'm going to do some talking. I'm going to do some music in the background. I'm going to do some talking again because there's some things I want you to see. There's some things that I want to talk about as I'm doing this. And one thing I really want to get out there, thank you. Thank you for 100,000 views. I already did the Netherite beacon, but I'm mainly using quartz, and I'm using as many good materials as I can drum up. So I've been going through and I've been collecting up. I already, like I said, I did the Netherite beacon. That hopefully I'll never have to do again. But then again, hopefully I do. I did say at the Netherite Beacon video, if I get 1 million subscribers, I might do it again. So I guess if I had 1 million subscribers, I wouldn't mind doing it so much. That's so far away. I ain't even worried about that right now. But this is the entire build. And I'm starting out with this. And one of the things I want to point out is the purple block. Well, I'll think of it some point. But the purple block I'm going to use because I love that block. It's right here. Amethyst. I can read. So I love the amethyst block. It's so purpley. And then the two houses that was like kind of attached to the build that I was working on that you seen me dig out way back when. Those two houses that are involved there, well, they're just going to transform and become part of the big build. And there's a lot of trial and error and everything like that as we go ahead and go through this. I had fun with this build. It took a long time. You are worth it. And I appreciate you. Now we're going to go ahead. We're going to roll the intro. It's looking good so far. Here we go. Hello, hello, and welcome to Old Dad's World. So this right here is the amethyst, and I decided to replace this with amethyst. I decided to replace the blocks on this. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was going to be much easier than it was, but it was not. And I wanted to make it something to where it just stood out, but at the same time, it fit the bill. So there's where the amethyst came in. I used some obsidian because, believe it or not, once you learn Lava Farm, obsidian's rather easy to get your hands on. Now, the one block that is not as easy to get your hands on, not even near as easy to get your hands on, and that's the quartz block. Now, I had tons of quartz because, well, I decided to make another right beacon. And it just ended up with so much quartz blocks. But outside of that, I have villagers that will sell me quartz blocks. So, but this right here and the replacing of the blocks and making sure that I did it right, that was a lot harder than I thought it was. Now, I've done this before in a village and things, and maybe because of the area, maybe because of the blocks I was using, I ain't 100% sure. But this was much more difficult than I remembered it being. Not to mention that at a certain point, I realized I was making mistakes and I had to switch out blocks. So once I switched out blocks, and anytime you're using quartz, you just hit it and it just goes bam and just makes this giant hole instead of knocking out one block and things like that. But as you see here, there is still trial and error in it, but this turned out beautiful. It was worth the time, it was worth the effort and things like that I made for it. I am very happy with how this turned out. It's a good start anyway. Now, this section right here, it was really kind of interesting whenever I made the initial section What I found was there was a place where there was a farm. I wanted to encase the farm for the village. That way I had my farmer villagers that would tend the farm. I don't know. It just seemed right at the time whenever I was making it. And I left some of my mistakes in there because I made the joke, and I don't even know if it came through on the recording because a lot of times I'll end up having to do the audio on these things like 4, 5, 6 times because I'll make mistakes. But I wanted to point out the fact that I do make a lot of mistakes, and I wanted you to be able to see some of the mistakes that I make as I make them. I just don't want you thinking that I'm like this perfect Minecrafter. I am just like you and everybody else. I play to play. And as you notice, I'll do a lot of overviews where I just go and fly or go to a side and just take a look. And here we go taking a look again. So this is where I realized I didn't remember how many block I needed. And yeah, I know I have plenty of block. I'm using emerald. I got tons of block for the super beacon. But I didn't know how many I needed, so I had to go back and count. And this is where I went back and counted. Now this is one of the more interesting points to like this whole build because it was forever doing this floor and getting these villagers up here. Well, I realized whenever I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this, I have to move the villagers again. And I have to take out parts of this floor. It's going to have a beacon in here. I decided that this place of the village was the perfect place for the beacon. And my thought pattern, it was the villagers seeing the giant beacon and they all gravitated and moved toward it. That's how I'm thinking as I'm building this. And those are the things that are making me kind of happy with this build and how I'm doing it. So I had to move them. I had to move the villagers. And here we are. This is the part where I measure the floor to make sure that everything's right. A lot of times I'll do something like this if it's a bigger build. I'll do the measurements first. That way I don't make big mistakes. Real big mistakes anyway. I do it a lot with mob farms. I'll do the measurements first and then I'll start building on to what I'm supposed to build. But the measurements is difference between getting it right and making a big mistake. So we're going to add glass to this. We're going to just do this. And this is what I meant by as far as the room. It's going to be like a place where I can store my emeralds, and it's going to have iron golem guards. That's going to be great. So as I go in, I'm going to have these iron golems protecting my emeralds. It's nice. It's wonderful. I like it anyway. This is the place where I change and I put the glass back as far as outside of where the beacon is. Now, I was a little nervous on this because I was like, will the glass affect the beacon? I've never done this before, but it doesn't, so we're all good. And we're just putting the glass back. Right now, we're going to fix the floor and we're going to make little holes, fill the holes, things like that. We don't want to go too far with the digging it out though, because if the iron golem goes into it, it's going to make it much more difficult to do this floor. So right now, all I want to do is replace this floor with emerald blocks because it's an emerald beacon. When you go inside, I want it to look right. So that's what we're doing now is we're just fixing the floor. So now we're going to work on the upper part. Plus we're going to do things like the stairs and make sure we have the hole there for the beacon so the light can go up. And, you know, the beacon is worthwhile. This is something though that, as you see, and if you watch me do it, you'll know that I'm really doing it off the cuff. I don't have a plan in mind as I'm doing it. That's why I go out and I'll check and I'll see how it looks. And then I'll come back and I'll make adjustments. I'll redo things. You're missing a whole big part here where I did a couple of things, like right here, I did all in blocks before I did this. And up top, I did it every one or every four. And I decided on the area that I went with, and I'm very happy with it. But that's all due to the fact that as I'm building, I'll step away, I'll look at the build, I'll be like, do I like this? Do I not like this? And then I'll just go from there. And here's how it went. This is where Captain Threehead got fought 6 times by Young Lad, and here we are finishing the beacon. So thank you, Young Lad, for killing Captain Threehead 6 times for me so I could do these projects. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate all you. I'm coming toward the end of this video. I've got one last thing to share with you, but this is beautiful. I hope you liked the build. I hope you like how everything turned out. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for 100,000 views. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share it if you would. And I will see you next time. Later.